Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Rolika Roach and welcome to the Live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 26, 2020. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel to address you. Minister Samuel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika, and good morning. Good morning to our Prime Minister. Good morning to my colleague ministers. Good morning to the media. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. As Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, I would like to inform the general public on the ongoing developments surrounding the impact of COVID-19 on the education sector. As COVID-19 cases continue to surge within the community of St. Martin, and more specifically among the younger demographic, it is important that all schools report any COVID-related cases as they are confirmed. This will allow the proper steps to be taken in order to further mitigate the spread of the virus within the community. As a part of St. Martin's education continuity plan, all public and subsidized schools were provided with 2 forms, which consist of a step-by-step guidelines in the event a student or staff member has contracted the COVID-19 virus. The 2 forms addresses specific steps to follow in the event that 1, the infected person is present at school, and 2, the infected person is not present at school. In addition to these forms, the schools were also provided with a separate reporting form that addresses the specific scenario. School boards are reminded to make use of the forms in the event a student or staff member has contracted the COVID-19 virus. As the ministry works towards establishing an enabling environment for education continuity during these challenging times, it is our hope that all students will be accommodated and would have adapted to the new online learning approach. The support and cooperation of the community of St. Martin, particularly the parents and teachers, is sincerely appreciated and recognized. We are stronger together. I thank you, and I await any questions that may come.
Thank you, Minister Samuel, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Sylvia Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Oh, shit. Good morning. Good morning to you, Rolika. Good morning to my fellow colleagues in the Council of Ministers and the media present, as well as all those following this broadcast. Today, August 26th, 2020, it is my pleasure to be able to be back on the island to address the people of St. Martin, as well as to take back up my role as Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs. Last week, the 3rd consultation, or prior to continuing, I would like to thank the Council of Ministers and the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister Egbert Doran, for the hard work that they continue to do during my absence, as well as keeping me abreast of all developments. My heart goes out to all those who are currently also feeling the effects of the COVID-19 virus as we continue to fight to mitigate the spread. And I'm very happy that we were unable, or that we did not sustain any significant damage with the passage of Tropical Storm Laura, as we see that she is actually kicking up quite a bit and is expected to cause some damage. We pray for the safety of all those in her path. Last week, the 3rd consultation session on the draft National Development Vision took place and was streamed live via Zoom on Facebook. The key objective of St. Martin's NDV is to transform St. Martin into a compassionate, strong, and decisive country that will be economically resilient and capable of sustaining its own development and providing an enhanced quality of life and well-being for generations to come. Departing from this objective, the vision for St. Martin is built on 3 pillars, or development themes. 1, a compassionate and vibrant society. 2, a strong and resilient economy, and lastly, a safe, secure, decisive, and ambitious country. The third and final session focused on the third development pillar in the draft NDV, a safe, secure, decisive, and ambitious St. Martin. The grounds of the sessions were set by the Department of Interior and Kingdom Relations, and I must say thank you to Angelique Gums and the crew at BAC for all the hard work they're doing to get this platform up and running. And they had opening words on good governance, on what good governance is and what it means for the development of St. Martin and which institutions play a pivotal role. Basically, it was concluded that good governance is a precondition to meet the existing development challenges we are facing in St. Martin. We need to have good governance in place to enhance our education, to improve our healthcare, to reduce poverty, to maintain our culture, to protect our environment, and to promote sustainable financial economic development. The High Councils of State were also invited to present their roles and responsibilities in relation to the development of St. Martin's people. The Integrity Chamber, the Ombudsman, and the SER presented their roles and responsibilities as well in a system of checks and balances. These checks and balances are put in place to protect the rights of our people when government makes important decisions pertaining to the overall development that are laid down in policies and regulations. The Financial Intelligence Unit also presented their role as a national unit responsible for analyzing suspicious transactions and other information relevant to money laundering and tax evasion. Criminal activities that could undermine, as well as criminal activities that could undermine the overall development of St. Martin. It was evident that a lot has been achieved in St. Martin since 2010, but also that these organizations are faced with financial constraints and a lack of available qualitative data. Constraints that were mentioned in the previous sessions by the stakeholders, also from the private sector and the NGOs. In addition to the previous stakeholders, to what the previous stakeholders mentioned, the National Recovery Project Bureau, NRPB, explained their role in the recovery process that started after Irma. Furthermore, the connection of the recovery process to the overall long-term developmental process was made, and the importance of linking not only recovery projects, but all projects under the overall long-term development vision of St. Martin. By having this long-term vision, the scarcity of capacity and resources could be then guided better, and this will provide a better outcome and a greater impact for all of us here in St. Martin. All of the sessions have been made available online via the department's Facebook page. That's the Department of Interior and Kingdom Relations. Persons that were not able to tune in are encouraged to play back the sessions and leave comments. On this page, a link is also provided to a questionnaire. The questionnaire will remain online until August 31st. In this way, the general population also gets to have a say in the development of this national development vision, under which we will then be able to execute a 10-year plan to the improvement of St. Martin society for all concerned. I would also like to update the general public that there are upcoming parliamentary meetings. I'm actually having quite a few this week. I will be attending 3 today, August 26th at 3 p.m. The earlier one for 11 a.m. Will continue, but not publicly. That is on the decolonization process of the Dutch islands, which was called by the committee. Later on at 3, I'll be in Parliament for a continuation, urgent public meeting number 29 with the agenda point, status update on the SSRP and the assistance program of the SSRP, as well as further COVID-19 liquidity assistance from the Netherlands and the conditions tied to this assistance, together with the Minister of Finance. On August 28th at 10 a.m., there will also be a Central Committee meeting with agenda point landsverordening tot herstel van de wet technische omissie in de landsverordening van de 26 juni 2017. We are still, of course, in the midst of the COVID-19 situation. not only here on St. Martin, but also abroad. I must say that there has been a lot of understanding and awareness now built on the island as to what this virus is, how it behaves, and what we have to do to stop it. Though I'm still getting a lot of messages from persons who would want to see the island shut down, we must understand that that is not being recommended, not even by the WHO any longer. Proper understanding of how we have to behave to stop the spread of this virus is important for all concerned. As we know, it has spread over the whole island, not just on the Dutch side, but also on our French side, as we were well aware all along. We have to do more together to mitigate the spread. But of course, each person must live up to their individual responsibilities. Unfortunately, the Minister of VSA could not make it in time to make opening statements on this topic. But of course, we will continue to explain to the general public the developments as COVID-19 continues and our mitigation measures continue with the assistance of our health professionals. I would like to thank each and everyone who has been working diligently over the past months to ensure that people are safe, and we're very happy to see daily that persons are recovering and recovering well. I wish each and everyone the opportunity to educate yourself on how this virus works, what to do if becoming infected, and how to avoid spreading it even to especially your loved ones. Proper face mask usage has become the norm. And I must say, even in my travels, this is what has kept us safe. Keeping a social distance of minimally 1.5 to 2 meters away from other persons as much as possible, ensuring that you wear your mask at all times. Hand washing often, and when that is not possible, to use hand sanitizer. After a few times using the hand sanitizer, though, of course, you must then go to washing with soap and water vigorously for 20 seconds. Observing proper respiratory etiquette, that means coughing, sneezing, even talking, should be done in such a manner that you avoid spreading your droplets to others. Therefore, wearing a mask and coughing and sneezing into your elbow or into a jacket is recommended. Limit physical contact, and I think that is where we're having the most challenges. Stop the handshaking, the hugging, and the kissing, especially with persons who you do not know if they are doing their part in the public sphere in terms of mask usage and social distancing. A lot of us have gotten very, very complacent in our homes and in the workplace, and that's why we're seeing it spread also in these areas. Please limit the contact you have on your job. We do not have to start moving in a panic mode, however, but ensure your personal safety at all times. Ensure you have hand sanitizer and running water and soap on your job as well. And of course, this is the responsibility of the employer to ensure the safety of all employees. We must all do our part to fight against this COVID-19, as it is not disappearing from the world scene. You're hearing a lot of developments in terms of vaccines and the like. However, nothing is yet there. Building our immune system is the best way we can fight off this disease, and observing all of the protocols that have been put in place since early March will help us to stop the spread. We must see that this country can survive this pandemic. We must see that we will come out of this hurricane season safe and secure, so that we can create that multi-pillar economy that we need, so that we are not so vulnerable to external shocks such as these. All of us must do it together. And I'm praying and hoping that we will get there, as long as we remain faithful and positive and seek to raise each other up instead of tearing each other down. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm grateful to be back home, grateful to be able to work hard for the people, and I look forward to any questions that may be coming from the media. Thank you, Relaika.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 26, 2020. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. However, before we begin, I would like to inform that the Ministers of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, the Honorable Ludmila de Wever, as well as the Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, the Honorable Egbert Duran, as well as the Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, the Honorable Richard Panafleck, and the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Artwell Edion, are all present, however, will not be making any opening statements, but will be available for questions the media may have. We now move on to the question and answer session. Nakisha Boseman of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relika. A pleasant good morning to everyone. My first question is for the Minister of Education. Minister Samuel, can you indicate exactly how many schools are presently conducting face-to-face classes on the school compounds? And are there any schools that are using the blended learning approach that you mentioned last week?
Thank you for the question. It is a question, though, where I must go and get that information, so it will be sent to you. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. Thank you, Nakisha. I would now like to invite Lyndon Brown of BCN TV. You have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin, and also we want to spread a little bit. We know that some parents and families are hurting now, and we're reaching out to that family in in Belvedere. Question to Minister Samuel. Minister Samuel, we are emphasizing today the school bus drivers. We know for 40 years that the school bus driver did not have a contract with government. It was agreement. Minister Samuel, can you explain to the people what will be the outcome of the school bus driver and make it clear how they can be financially compensated?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for the question. Most naturally, the Ministry of Education have had discussions with the school bus drivers after the shutdown from March to June. We have had discussions with the school bus drivers. In that time, we had made arrangement for the school bus drivers to take those students to school that were having exams at the time. We have had sessions, and in those sessions, we arrange with each other and agree, and guidelines and protocols were put in place in order to make sure that the students and the bus drivers was safe when they're taking the students to school. When the spread of the virus in the community goes down and when it is safer, the schools most naturally will begin in a phased manner, let us say face-to-face. So it won't be all the students at once. At that time, the school bus drivers again will be in full force in order to do their part to taking their children to school. And this all has been discussed and communicated with the school bus drivers. I thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. Thank you, Lyndon, for that question. I would now like to invite Stephen Cerillion of PJ82 Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. First of all, how many questions do I have?
For right now, Stephen, we're aiming for 2 to 3 rounds.
Okay, great. My first question is for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, good morning and welcome back. Good morning to you as well, Councillor Ministers. Prime Minister, since May 1st, there has been no board members at the Social Economic Council of St. Martin, as the 3-year term of board members ended on April 30th. In order for the CIA to function optimally, a board is needed to be put in place. Has the Council of Ministers, or you as the Prime Minister in charge of General Affairs, started the process to appointing new board members? If yes, how soon will that be done? If no, why not?
Good morning to you, Stephen, and thank you for that welcome. Yes, the SER, I think I mentioned this in previous press briefings. They were expanding the representation on the SER board to include more employer representatives. And so a group was charged to finalize that process. And as soon as that process is finalized, then the members will be appointed. And it's basically ready. We just need to get that representatives, from the employers as well to be on the SER board. It is in the process.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Stephen, for that question. I would now like to invite Bibi Shah of SMN News. You have the floor.
Good morning. Relaika, good morning. I have a three-part question for the Minister of TIAT. Please indulge. And it's all related to one topic. Minister Ludmila De Weaver, just recently there was a press release and lots of emails and messages from the vendors of the Kimsha Beach, the market there. These people are claiming, these business people, they're claiming that they received a separate MB as to the 10 p.m. closure. Minister, I'm asking this question specifically because of the situation St. Martin is in when it comes to liquidity support. And here we know that we have a situation where we have to have business survival in St. Martin. Can you tell me if the decision made by the former Minister of TIAT, Doncha Arundel for Kimsha Marketplace, was it a permanent situation? Were the vendors that are currently operating at Kimsha, are they all local entrepreneurs? And were they respecting the 10 p.m. closing time based on the first MBA that was created for all businesses? And why was there a need for a separate MBA that's targeting only the businesses at the vendors of Kimsha Beach? The parking area.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, viewing public, all the journalists here. Bibi, thank you for the question. Council of Ministers, Prime Minister. Thank you very much for the question. I just wanted to make sure you guys could hear me okay. Not perfect. Okay. I appreciate the point to clarify that. I actually thought it was going to come from other people that ran the story instead of who didn't call me beforehand. But nonetheless, the reason a separate MB had to be made for the parking lot, the Simpson Bay vendors, the marketplace, is because they were created in a separate regulation and under a separate legislation, which they should know well because it was unceremoniously done so. So it was not an issue of whether or not they were not respecting the 10 p.m. Closure. It's that they had the rules that we had in place to allow businesses to close at 10 p.m. didn't apply to them. So we had to make a separate regulation for them. And unfortunately, I have two of them that are my childhood friends that didn't call me to ask me about it before they sensationalized the news. But one of the vendors actually called me as well over the weekend to clarify whether or not that was the case. And because we did it a day after, so that's why we had to retroactively backdate it. But it is temporary. It is until August 31st. And actually, I had a meeting with the Minister of VSL last night to clarify whether or not how the measures are going to hopefully be able to allow businesses to reopen. But that is really, really heavily dependent on the public obeying and following the rules and doing the social distance. In my conversation with doctors, that's the most important thing, is the social distance and the mask. So I really hope we can go. And from day one, everyone knows that I'm the one promoting businesses and fighting to have the airports open so that we can have businesses. So it would be the last thing that I would want to do as the Minister of TIAT. But I hope I've clarified it. So the minute that we decide August 31st is our time to reopen the regular hours, then they will fall under it as well with the same separate legislation to regulate them. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister De Weaver. Thank you, Bibi, for that question. I would now like to invite Jeffrey Dr. Cochran of Island 92 Radio. You have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning. A welcome back to our Prime Minister. It's nice to see you back home, and we hope all is well. I'd like to talk a little bit about enforcement, if we might. Over this past weekend, and perhaps this might be best addressed by the Prime Minister, or maybe best addressed by the Minister De Wever from TIAT. There were numerous reports, I know numerous calls to the police over this past weekend regarding a house party that was happening in the Pelican Key area with the DJ. They were apparently charging for drinks. It was all over social media. It was all over Facebook. Many in the neighborhood were quite upset. They kept calling the police. Every time a different neighbor would call, the police would say, yes, we know about it. Nothing happened. And I think we would all agree that it's these types of get-togethers in closed quarters that help spread the virus. How do we, from an economic affairs perspective, from a health perspective, from a law enforcement perspective, get our arms around these kind of events so that they don't happen and we don't continue the spread, especially amongst the young population, and then spread it to the older population? Thank you.
Malika, would you like me to answer that, or a PM? Because I think Mr. Sock directed it at PM. I can answer part of it that I know of. Thanks, Dr. Sock. We had the challenges with the same question that Ms. Shaw asked about the business closures. You had to do, there is, not everyone falls under the same regulation. And that's why you would have to do additional MBAs or ministerial regulations to counter it. And with that sort of behavior of a private party, it is on private property. Unless we have a regulation in place that says no gatherings of groups over 4, then that would work. Especially, it would work easier as well under a state of emergency. So unfortunately, again, we go back to the behavior is key here to avoid us from having to take stricter measures, such as a state of emergency, in order to enforce behaviors that are going to be conducive to reducing our spread of COVID-19. This is one of those. This is one of those, irresponsible behaviors that are going to prolong the situation for us, prolong us being able to open further than 10 p.m. So when it comes to other businesses that did not respect the 10 p.m. deadline, I was in touch with the Minister of Justice. We asked for more controls from the inspector side of TIAT. So again, I will just urge the public, the same way that you had two different sectors that cooperated with government and voluntarily closed, voluntarily stopped serving alcohol, voluntarily stopped having smoking indoors because people have to wear a mask. We are hoping that the rest of the island understands that, because we cannot go further with any restriction on businesses anymore. And this bad behavior in a private property, unfortunately, it really leaves a lot to be desired. And I hope that they are listening to this and that they will curb their behavior. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister De Wever. Prime Minister, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Rolika. Thank you, Minister De Wever. I think Minister De Wever covered it, Dr. Sock as well. Thank you for your kind words of welcome back. I must say that even while away, I received many messages and calls as well in certain areas you would not even think. People seem to think that they're immune for some reason, and pictures even were sent to me of people gathering. And several said they can't wait for me to come back to lock it down. Now, it could have been locked down when I was here or not. Let's just make that very, very clear. It was a concerted decision not to do that. When we took that decision back in March, it was because we had no information. We had no testing. We had a lot of nothing at the time to be able to deal with COVID-19. We also didn't have the information as to how to stop it any other way. By stopping it, we were able to assess, we were able to then show that, hey, this is out of hand. We only had 3 to 5 beds in ICU. We were able to get more things on the island to be able to deal with it. But even now, our medical professionals are stressed. And because so many people are recovering, we are only mentioning, and people focus on the negative numbers, but a vast majority of people are recovering with minor symptoms. Some don't even realize they had it. Some are finding out now that they must have had it back in February or March that they didn't even know. And so this is a virus that handles everybody differently. But we have to be cognizant of this. Just the way that we would protect ourselves in a normal flu season, it's a super flu. It is severely infectious and it spreads like wildfire. So we must be able to curb our behavior. And I think people on St. Martin are just naturally exuberant and love to hug and laugh and gather, et cetera, et cetera. But we have to do so very responsibly. When I had my birthday back in July, it was a limited amount of persons. There was hand sanitizer at the door. And you're not going to, if you have loud music, you're going to encourage speaking loudly and basically spitting on each other. There's no other way to say it. So these types of, and that's why bars are more precarious than other locations where people go out at night. So if you're going to be able to go out and be socially distanced, you only go out with those persons that you live with in your home. And if you're meeting friends, you remain with your mask on, then that's responsible. Do we want to move to a police state? Is that what we really want on St. Martin? To be constantly, when will we then go back to any sense of normalcy? It is our behavior, our discipline that will make a difference. I have not been yet updated by neither the Council of Ministers nor the EOC task force as to where we are at the moment. So these are things that we will be looking at moving forward and making sure, Dr. Sock and all others, that we can properly enforce whatever regulations we put in place. And we don't have the Minister of Justice here to reiterate, but I know for sure when I give a call, she sends out the troops. So definitely continue to report. Do not be discouraged. And for sure, once a few are punished severely, I think the rest will learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Thank you, Minister DeWeaver, as well as Dr. Sock for that question. We now move on to the second round of questions. Nikisha Bosman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Religer. My second question is for the Minister of Finance. Minister, last week you said that St. Martin's remaining liquidity at the end of July was 71 million guilders. Can you indicate how long can the remaining liquidity sustain expenditures such as salaries, etc., without any additional support?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Bosman. Again, that always depends on our income. So our salaries, including paying foundations and so forth, it's about 14.2 million guilders a month. And we have other expenses, fixed expenses that we have to pay. So in terms of salaries, it's 14.2 million guilders a month. It will depend, of course, the liquidity of last month was last month, but we are going to get income again as time goes on. So if the income stays steady, we'll be able to pay salaries. But what is taking a heavy load on us currently is the payroll support, unemployment support, income support, and expenses that we didn't put in the budget initially. For example, the isolation facility, the test kits probably that are coming up for Ministry of VSA. So incidental cases, especially COVID-19 related, and they are kind of unpredictable. Every month it differs.
Thank you, Minister Edion, and thank you, Nikisha, for that question. I would now like to invite Lyndon Brown. You have the floor.
Once again to the ministers, and question goes to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, you use the word compassionate. Great word, Prime Minister. But the emphasis today, the question, is based on the St. Martin, Curacao, and Aruba. As we speak, are drafting letters to send to the Dutch. And the question is basically, what is the high point, Minister? What St. Martin and Curacao and Aruba want to achieve from these letters?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'm not sure in what context the compassionate was used and how it relates to this question that you're asking. I do know that I have been in constant contact with my colleagues in Aruba and Curacao. I think what has been lost on the general public based on the way the news has been brought forward from the Ministry of BZK and State Secretary Knops after our last meeting of the Kingdom Council of Ministers on the 14th of August is that there is some difference between the islands. There is a serious divide and conquer type of situation going on, whilst it is very, very clear, if one reads the letter that was sent, that all three islands, whether they are in compliance with the second tranche or not, none are in agreement with the conditions for the third tranche. None of us, Aruba, Curacao, nor St. Martin, agrees that these conditions being put on us to be able to get our necessary reforms done, which we all agree are needed, and we all wanted to have a say in how they would be done, prioritizing them, and who would be basically having the monitoring aspect over the execution of them. When the three governments and parliaments can stick together, we are stronger. And so as I said before, I just got back in yesterday, and so I was not officially in discussions whilst on my leave. And so I will be updated, and once I'm debriefed from our Deputy Prime Minister and the others who were working continuously behind the scenes, we will then be able to come to the public as to the next steps forward. But rest assured that we are stronger together, and all avenues available to us will be used in order to be recognized for who we are as a constituent state within this kingdom, and therefore all the rights and obligations and laws must be upheld.
Rolika, may I also add to that?
Yes, Minister Edion.
In addition to what the PM just said, yes, we are, as countries within the kingdom, strong together, but we do see the tactics of by the Netherlands, where they are basically waiting until, if you read the article from the Prime Minister of Aruba recently, as a good kingdom partner, I can't imagine waiting until a country has to suffer and go on their knees and for you to decide, I want to help. And if you look at how the negotiations went in Europe with the Netherlands and a couple of the other Scandinavian countries, yes, it was heated. Yes, it was a long back and forth, but they did come to a consensus without having France, Spain, or Italy have to suffer until the very, very last moment to give in to conditions. You just don't see that anywhere around the world. So when we're talking about good kingdom partners, I would like to see similar examples by the Netherlands when having negotiations with us.
Thank you, Minister Edion, Prime Minister, as well as Lyndon, for the question. I would now like to invite Stephen Cerillion. You have the floor.
Thank you again, Ms. Roach. My question this time again is for the Prime Minister as the Minister of General Affairs. Since the passing of the Vice Chair of the Council of Advice, the late Mavis Brooks Salmon, in January, there is still no replacement. Can you provide some information as to how close is the government to finding a replacement for the late Ms. Salman?
Thank you, Stephen, for that question. I must say the shoes of our former Vice Chair are quite difficult to fill. It is a part-time function, and so it's very difficult to find people who would leave their full-time job who are qualified to do that. We have been discussing randomly, looking at ways of maybe increasing the age limit, but no final decision has been taken in that respect. Once that has been done, I will then update. I would like to thank the interim Vice Chair, Mrs. Marcella Hazel, for taking on the role. It's been quite a while now that she has been carrying the load, and she also has asked that we address this as soon as possible. But I would like to thank her in the interim for carrying the load so amicably. It is a difficult function to fill, as it requires a skill set that is not readily available around the island. So hopefully by this means, those who have not yet been aware that it is an available function, feel free to send in a letter of interest so that you can be also taken along. We have been looking long and hard at this function to be able to fill it, and I must say it has been quite difficult. But we continue to do what we have to, and if we can find persons, however, they are over the age limit, then we will see that maybe temporarily giving a reprieve on that requirement to allow someone to take the function up 100%. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Stephen, as well, for that question. I would now like to invite Bibi Shaw. You have the floor.
How many rounds will we be having?
BBB, look like we will have 3.
All right, thanks. My question, I would do a follow-up with the Minister of TIAT. Minister, you said as of August 31st, we are going to reopen back to normal business hours. Can you elaborate if, even though we are having the increase in cases, will you still go ahead and reopen to normal business hours after that? And for my question, I will then go to the Minister of Finance, Minister Irian. I have to say this, is that we on St. Martin know what it is the Dutch stance when it comes to St. Martin. Since 10-10-10, we have been experiencing the hard-on measures and how the Dutch have been dealing with St. Martin. For example, with the debt relief and every other thing, St. Martin had a long fight before they can at least get anything. And yes, we know what their situation is or what their position is on the liquidity support. What I'd like to ask you, though, Minister, is what is the plan B or C for any type of SSRP support for businesses if the Dutch does not release any money for the continuation? And can you also say if we have any form of agreement with the union at this point in time?
Thank you.
Oh, did you want me to go? Sorry, I was so confused.
The question was for TIAT, right?
Initially, TIAT. BB asked 2 questions in there.
Yes, I'll let you go first.
Mine's going to be fast. Thank you, Minister. BB, actually, so based on my conversation last night with the Minister of VSA, I'm still waiting to get an update on what the decision is going to be in terms of the advice from the medical professionals. We also have another Council of Ministers meeting tomorrow to discuss how we're going to move forward, because I would like to give notice as early as possible to the businesses. So in terms of the August 31st, that's the original date to go back to normal. And like you said, the cases are sort of up and down in the last week and a half. So hopefully by tomorrow, when we're done with the calm, that we will be able to make a decision on what we will do. And I hope that it will be news that will benefit, the business owners, as opposed to extending any kind of restrictions, especially as we go into the slow month of September. So I hope to have an update tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw, for your question. I believe your first question was, do we have a plan B or a C? I believe I said this before. There isn't a plan B or C, as if there's just a bag of money just waiting for St. Martin to say, hey, okay, I don't want to deal with the Dutch anymore. Just pick up this bag of money and go with it. Plan B or C is more of a holistic approach, and it's multifaceted, and is honestly not only the Ministry of Finance. Obviously, we're not going to stop the negotiations with the Netherlands. That is continuing. I had a meeting with CFT, I believe this week also, to continue working on the conditions. So that still is in process. We've even gotten some clarity that we didn't agree with CFT. BZK has given clarity, and they are in agreement with us, actually. So even when persons mention that, oh, just agree, disagree, no, at the end of the day, I live in St. Martin, and this is a country I have to defend. So I will defend as much as possible, even if it takes a little longer than the other two islands maybe, but I have to defend in the interest of our people. In addition to that, we have, taken up this position as a Minister of Finance. As much as I would like to proceed with things a lot faster and so forth, there are a lot of dead bodies within government for the last 10 years. So as you make progress, you end up hitting up into what you think is a rock maybe, or a pebble. There's a whole dead body from previous cabinets, politics and so forth. But what we are doing is cleaning up, we're becoming more efficient, and we're also applying more cost-saving measures. One of the measures that I brought to the Council of Ministers recently, and they have approved, and we will be applying it in a couple of weeks, was our phone policy. So in 2015, we had a phone policy that was approved, and I will say that it was approved but never really properly implemented, and I would even dare to say even abused at times. And when the data shows the department in my cabinet, the FBA department, in addition with a couple other departments, with initial research showed that we were probably losing almost 100,000 guilders a month by not applying the policy properly. So the initial phase with the cleanup, I believe we started to save about 81,000 guilders. So with the new phase that we're going into right now, we've made a hard decision and sometimes probably uncomfortable for some, but we're going to go over to a prepaid system for most persons, and they will continue to get the amount in the policy, but now prepaid. Why is this important? So now we won't have persons going over their phone bills. And I can even say this, we've had persons who are not on management level with phone bills of 6,000 guilders. And in the past. And when you see these type of things and the abuse that happened in the past, that's what I'm talking about, dead bodies, you have to clean up. And so that's one of the things we're doing currently. We have also agreed to and adjusted the gas policy when it comes to gas for government vehicles. So we are looking at all ways that we could save money and become more efficient within government, so that we are able to help the community and the business even more. So we don't need Holland or any other country to tell us exactly what we need to do. What we need to do is actually execute. So not having ideas only, but actually executing and understanding as a government that these unpopular decisions might not, some of them might not be win your next election, but at the end of the day, you have to do what needs to be done, and that's what we're busy doing.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Thank you, Minister DeWeaver, as well as Bibi, for the question. I would now like to invite Jeffrey, Dr. Saksakrin. You have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. This question is for Mr. Panafleck. Mr. Panafleck, I would like you to comment as you did, I think it was last week, about the positive cases that we have on the island that are resulting from testing at the airport. You were pretty emphatic about the low level of positives that resulted from airport testing. Is that still the case? What is the number of positives that we're seeing from the airport? And I guess as a follow-up to that, how do we stand with the supply of tests for COVID-19 on the island? Is there still adequate supply, or are we running short? Thank you, Minister.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Mr. Sock. Referring to your questions, yes, the testing at the airport still reflects a very low, almost nihil percentage of the amount of people coming to the islands as tourists or returning to either their resorts, property, timeshare, etc. The reason why, and that was something that was brought up during conversation also with my colleague Minister of TIAT, is that the airlines are doing very well their part of checking, even though you come with your proof to come to the islands, but check still if the test that the passengers are coming with is the required test that the government has set. So being that even that works, that the amount of people that have to be tested at the airport dropped significantly, and also that the amount of, if in any case somebody comes and have to be tested because of other indications, that the test result is with a high percentage of negative. So that is the case still, and we are thank God for that, because we had to shift the capacity that we have on the island to the internal market that is going on still. I just got a report of CPS. It's indicated that besides the locations that were taken into consideration already by closing them earlier, like the bars, the lounge, the clubs, etc., that we all know about. Apparently, right now, one of the other places that is showing that the infection is going on is at workplaces. So that is also something that we have to take in consideration. That's why in previous press briefings, and every time I tell them, it's not that I'm asocial. Maybe people might think so, but I used to like to hug people and kiss them and all those kind of things too. But right now, we are living in an area that you have to avoid that. That's why I said, if the persons are not living in your own household, please refrain. I mean, kiss them virtually. Go on the internet and you can hug and kiss and all those kind of things. They got all those kind of smileys of to do it. But right now, we cannot do it. I've been in offices outside of government, in government, and I told them, yes, I understand. You all are colleagues, or you're sitting together for so long and all those kind of things. But think about this. The two of you outside of this office have your own life. So you interact with other people. Those people are interact with other people. You do not know all what the situation is. So please, even when you come to the office and you've been working with each other in the office so long, still protect yourself, protect the other, wear your mask, do your sanitation, keep your social distancing, because it don't have to be the one in front of you, but it's because we all have other people we are dealing with. It will come back to face we that are facing each other at the time, and then you do not know afterwards from, oh, I didn't go nowhere, I only go to supermarket, I only go to church, I only go to work, and I still get infected. Yes, because of that, you will get infected. Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, Minister Panaflick. Thank you, Dr. Yes, Dr. Saw?
Yes.
I had asked also the Minister, the supply of tests that we have available, is it still adequate? Do we have a sufficient number of tests on the island? If so, how many?
The adequate, it's a word that is relative, because if you want to test everybody right now on the island, no, we don't have for that. But we can manage right now with the capacity between the labs that we have to do the jobs that we have to do. The thing is, we are constantly looking to expand capacity. One of the things is, it's not only capacity of the kits, the test themselves. You need to look also in the human factor. I have said it before, also the human factor. Right now, like it was mentioned, I heard the Prime Minister stating it, for us to be able to do all what we need to do, we are relying a lot of the human factor. And yes, we are not inhuman, and we do know that human factor is something that can exhaust. So we'll have to take that also in consideration. Coming back to recap, so the fact is that the tourist part, the passengers part coming to St. Martin, seeing that it's well controlled and that the amount of people that have to be tested is lower than it used to be, we can shift that capacity now that is necessary within the local area, and that we can do that. There was a little mishap that happened over the weekend, but that was because we had to synchronize the availability of testing, and once that was taken care of, we can move forward, that we can do that. Yes, and then another thing, for me not to skip any information, is that the testing also still is just like in the beginning, because that is the practice what they do. If you are feeling symptomatic, if you're feeling not well, you have the cold and all this kind of thing, check with your general practitioner, your home doctor, and he or she will indicate you further if it is necessary or not to continue for to be tested and things like that. It is not just like that that you'll be tested. You'll be tested if there is the necessity for that. I hope that you have answered your question, Dr. Sock.
Thank you, Dr. Sock. Thank you, Minister Panafleck. In looking at our time, members of the media, we do have about 3 minutes left within the broadcast. Therefore, I would have to end off the question and answer session. I would like to thank everyone for taking part in all members of the media for taking part in this press briefing this morning. Honorable Minister. Yes, Bibi?
I have a very important question. That's why I asked you about the 3-round. Can you allow me at least this one question, because it's very important?
Bibi, one moment, Prime Minister.
Yes, also, Rolika, I needed to clarify one of my opening statements. I mentioned I knew that the 11 o'clock meeting had been postponed, and I messed up. So I don't want to leave the public with any erroneous information. The meeting that I am having in that place is more an internal one within the cabinet and the ministry to be able to synchronize a bit more and ensure that government's, let's say, stance on the decolonization process is clear in answering the MP's questions. So it's not a private meeting of Parliament, but an internal meeting with my cabinet. So I just needed to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Bibi, you can go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Rolika, and I'm going to make it as fast as I could. Prime Minister and the questions are for you, any one of you. My colleague before asked about several boards, the SARE, about the Council of Advice. Can you tell us what's going on at the board of GEBE? Is the process complete? And also, what about SZB? I mean, it's over a year or more, they don't have a full board. They have one person. How are they operating? Minister Irian, there's word out there that government is looking to sell shares of government-owned company, especially Telem. What can you tell us about that? Because, of course, we have to raise money knowing that we may not get the money from the Dutch government. Thank you so much.
So I will start with my part of the question, Bibi. Government has engaged SOAB to conduct evaluations of our government-owned companies. It has been approved by the Council of Ministers. So yes, we have started the process of evaluating the companies, looking at how much they're valued at, and because we are looking at all possibilities in terms of raising money, as you mentioned. We aren't looking at any specific company at the moment. We are now just gathering the data, like I mentioned before, because we have to continue planning. With or without Dutch help, we should be able, as you mentioned before, to be able and be prepared for any other future disasters.
Thank you, Minister Irian. Prime Minister.
Yes, thank you, Rolika. The rest of the questions related to boards, etc., as I mentioned, I have not been updated as yet. So there were meetings last week, week before. So once I've been updated, Ms. Shaw, I'll be able to give some clarity on that. And I believe the Minister of Finance answered the rest of the question.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Irian. Once again, Members of the media, thank you for taking part. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 26, 2020. For rebroadcast, tune in to St. Martin Cable TV, Channel 115, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, and the YouTube channel Government of St. Martin. For video on demand, be sure to log in to the official government's website at stmartingov.org. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.